Seijo Wataru has been pestering Aika Natsukawa to go out with him since he met her. But our story begins the day a flying soccer ball passes in front of his eyes and makes him realize that making the effort is no longer worthy. He's been rejected too many times. So he decides to stop being all over her immediately, and it makes the difference. Ashita Ki, Aika's best friend, is the first one to notice it, but even if she tries to ask him what's wrong, he doesn't say anything and keeps distancing himself from the girl he has been endlessly obsessing over. During recess, Wataru's friends drag him to the bathroom to ask him what has gotten over him, as he has been avoiding the girl he used to ask out every day, but he doesn't say much of it. He assures them that he's still in love with her, but he has decided to stop pursuing her and just support her. He goes to have lunch alone, and their second-year girl named Aizawa Rina comes to talk to him. She introduces herself in a very mysterious way and leaves short after, letting a very confused boy behind. When he comes back to classes the next day, his friends are panicking because Rina is looking for him, and they think he has let Aika to pursue her instead, but the boy keeps acting apathic about it. Then, as if summoned, the girl appears and proceeds to ignore everyone, as she's that day's class helper. Rina jokes about giving her the wrong idea, making the boys sigh with exasperation. After PE, Ki goes to talk to Wataru, calling him womanizer, but she's mostly there to inform him that the girl that's suddenly been after him has been well known for being very lovey-dovey all over the place with her ex-boyfriend. So he goes to take a look at the boy, and he overhears him talking about the pink-haired girl, as he thinks she's his type. After that, he's very pensive during classes, so Ki asks what's wrong, and before he could ask her and her friend a question, the older girl comes to talk to him. The black-haired girl asks her if she has any important business with him, so when she denies it, she asks her why did she broke up with her boyfriend. The girl looks uncomfortable, but ends up saying that he didn't treat her as good, so the other girl starts bad-mouthing him like it's nothing. Rina doesn't like it, and after asking her to stop, she runs away upset. Wataru tries to follow after her, but after bumping into a short girl with a ton of paper, he loses her. However, he manages to find her when they first met and sits to talk with her, apologizing for what the girl has said. She asks if he's romantically involved with Aika, as the whole school knows he likes her, and he explains that he has decided to back off after being rejected so many times. Then she explains that she broke up with her boyfriend because he said that she was his type, so she decided to make him suffer by doing something similar, but things hasn't been working like she wanted. So Wataru decides to tell her that he had been terribly rejected by another girl when he met Natsukawa. The girl had been kind and warm to him after being hurt in such an awful way, and for him it was instant love. However the case, even if he now decided to support her from far away, he knows his feelings are not going to cool off just like that. This cheers the girl up, and the next day the girls see her holding hands with her boyfriend the next day. Yet our protagonist remains in his distant attitude. The girls ask if he's okay with Rina going back with her boyfriend, and he explains that he didn't expect nothing from it to begin with, but they don't get it. So he briefly explains that what was wrong with him was his attitude until now. Then his friends enter asking if he's been rejected again by the pink-haired girl, but he jokes saying that they are in the middle of a divorce now. Back at home, he's reflecting upon his attitude towards the girl that he so loved, realizing that he has been a total creep. But then she rings the doorbell. She's come to ask what's going on with him. He's trying to explain that he had realized he's been acting bad, but they are interrupted by his older sister, the vice president of the student council. So he decides to walk Aika home. In the way there, she asks him what was he going to say before they got interrupted, and he explains that he has given up in dating her and will just support her from afar. But this upsets the girl, and she runs back home alone. The next day, the seats have been rearranged, and him and Ki have sat away from the girl. So she asks how is he going to make himself responsible, as him being over the girl for so long has made her have very limited friends and now might be lonely. Reflecting upon what Ki has told him, Wataru decides to distance himself even more so Aika can make friends on her own. During lunch break, the president of the Public Morals Committee, Shinomiya Rin, stops him to thank him for apologizing to one of the members of her committee, Inatomi Yuyu, when he stumbled with her, as she seems to have some sort of phobia towards men. She asks for his advice with her team as they are usually disheartened to do things, thinking that she can do them because she's perfect. He tells her that a praising should do as if they view her as perfect, her praising might be even better than one from a goddess. She thanks him for the advice, but when she asks his name, he introduces himself as Yamazaki and goes on. The next morning, while going to school, his sister, Keed, rushes him to walk with Aika and to have a proper talk with her. But after saying hello, they don't talk much. She tries to start a conversation, but cuts herself short after, creating a weird vibe between them. Sadly, when they arrive to school, Keed informs him that his plan backfired, and now Rin is very pissed offly looking for him. When they reach the classroom, he's terrified of entering, but the girl comes out and scolding him for giving her a false name. He asks her to meet her at the office at lunch break. Then his friend arrives, asking why did he use his name with the girl, and he tries to play it off by saying that he knows she's his type, so now he has been called with her, which is enough to calm Yamazaki down. When lunch arrives, he goes with some dumplings and a spare chocolate dessert that he ends up giving Yuyu, as she's also part of that meeting, but the girl refuses, scared. Rin asks why did he give her a false name, and he explains that he was worried that giving the morality committee president his name might have caused him some troubles, so he wanted to avoid it. However, she lets it pass, as his interaction with the shy girl has helped her. She's able to apologize for running away when he offered his help after they stumbled with each other, and tells him she'll try harder to overcome her men phobia. Although he thanks her and things seem to be Wataru doesn't seem pleased with how things are turning as he keeps frowning until he reaches the classroom again. There he sees Aika surrounded by other girls who are watching something in her phone. He asks if he's going to join them, but he refuses and chooses to stay out of it. Then he receives a message from his sister asking for him to go to the council's office, and he leaves pissed off, unaware of Aika's gaze fixated on him. Keed asks for him to help the council with some paperwork, and him with the time she ignored when he lied with his age to get a part-time job, so he has no chance but to do so. After he's done, all the boys of the council congratulate him for his fast and efficient work, but he just wants to get out of there. He asks Kate if she's going to call him the next day, and she tells him that she's going to compensate him with a magazine if he plays along, something that leaves the boys surprised. Meanwhile, Yu asks Rin if she did something to upset Wataru, as he was looking at her disappointed. The girl follows the boy's advice and eases her, making her give an honest smile. The next day, Aika sees the boy's seat empty, but tries to ignore it. This becomes easy when all the girls she's been hanging with ask to go to her house and meet her little sister, so she has no choice but to accept. At that moment, an exhausted Wataru enters the door and Ki invites him over. Although the pink-haired girl doesn't say he can't go, she mentions that he won't let him any closer to her sister, which makes the boy even sadder. While he was leaving to go home, the girl stopped him to ask if he really wasn't going to go to her house, but they are interrupted by Rin, who needs to talk to the boy. After taking him to an office, she thanks him for his advice, but mentions that Yu was worried about his disappointment towards her. He wants to be nice at first, but Fader the girl pushes to know his real answer. He explains that he felt like she wasn't apologizing for his sake, but rather because she was tired of being held back because of her phobia, which in the end did make it a proper apology. The girl mentions that he's very good at reading people, and he mentions that it might be because up till now he was fixated in just one. Summer has arrived, and with that the new uniforms. As Wataru feels blessed to be in the class with air conditioner, Kei sneaks up on him and he asks her not to do so while dressed in such clothes. The girl calls him up and asks how is he going to deal with his crush in such uniform, but he remains firm on his decision and doesn't approach the girl. The black-haired girl is worried that it might have the opposite reaction to what he thinks, but he's sure that if he steps in, the calm and friendly environment would disappear. After PE, one of his friends congratulates him on the soccer match, and he asks if he went to Aika's house the other day, to which he shows him all the pictures they took of Eri. Our protagonist is quick to take the boy's phone, download the pictures, send them to his own phone, and then send them to his friend's sister, who has a huge brother complex, and asks for him to send her updates about her brother's activities often. Then his own sister texts him saying that she won't meet him, which makes him realize that he hasn't seen her since the weekend, but Dunes really worries him. During lunch, Yamazaki, who he hasn't spoke to in a long while since they changed his seats, approaches to invite him to eat with him and some loud girls he befriended. The girls are constantly asking if he has already done it with either Aika or Rina, but he denies it, as their relationship is not like that. At that moment, the pink-haired girl appears to drag him to the music classroom. He could tell that she's upset, but doesn't really know why, as the options are many. He asks for her to tell him what he should apologize for, and she tells him that it's because he was talking to those girls, which makes the proto light up with hope, but she quickly clarifies it's not like that. Yet when he asks her to explain, the girl runs away without saying a word. Later during classes, he tries to know what did she mean and asks Ki, but she tells him that her friend wouldn't be mad for such thing, which makes the boy keep overthinking the girl's actions. However, he doesn't have much time to think as one of the boys of the students' council asks for a meeting with him. Once alone, he explains that Keed has been avoiding him because she thinks that his change has been her fault, as she's usually hard on him and insults him way too often. So the boy has already arranged a place for them to meet. He doesn't want to see the girl sad and resents the younger boy for being the reason, so he's forcing him to fix it. He takes him to the rooftop where the girl has been waiting, thinking that she'd meet with Rin. Wataru immediately starts to scold her because he is pretty capable of taking his own decisions and doesn't need her to approve them or disapprove them. She tries to explain that she didn't want to give up on the girl he loved for years just because she made him feel bad, but truth is that he prefers the big sister that showed him the cruelty of the world and that made him understand how common he has always been. At that moment, Aika interrupts, grabbing him by the collar and asking him to apologize to his sister. He's shocked to see her there and see Ki trying to stop her, so she explains that she saw the member of the student council took him and wanted to know. It isn't until he asks if he went to the rooftop for him that she realizes how she's been acting and runs back down. Seeing that maybe they did make some progress, Ki goes back to her usual self and is way back home. Wataru buys her some pork breads that she likes as an apology for worrying her. But just like siblings, they end up fighting. Meanwhile, after the scene at the rooftop, the girls went to have frap and Eika explained to her friend that she didn't really know why she was reacting like that at the boy's recent actions, so Ki mentions that she might have gotten so used to his presence that now that he's not around as much, she feels like the place she belonged to is gone. However, she thinks that the boy has been pretty forward with his intentions towards her for too long, so it might be time for her to put on a little effort too. The next day, Katie mentions her brother that his roots are growing, as he used to dye his hair to keep up with his appearance for his crush, but he's not that interested in doing so anymore. At school, he salutes in way too formally, and when the girl complains, he starts being more informal and playful, which doesn't settle well with her either. During lunch, Aika tries to approach him, but gives up before even starting. Meanwhile, the boy finds a nice spot at the corridor to have his meal, which consists on some energy bars and a dessert. He doesn't realize until they call them out that Rin, Yuyu, and the last girl's childhood friend, Meta Ayano, are sitting next to him. They invite him to have lunch with them, and it surprises to him to see the once shy girl being talkative, while her friend is rather harsh and really wary when it comes to men. Once the other girls have left, the president of the morality committee thanks him for boosting her friend's change, as he was the push that she needed to be more open, and she thanks him again for helping her to be able to reach the members of her committee. Later, he sees his friend Sasaki, the one with the obsessive sister, who's actually sulking about her. The girl just won't leave him alone even at school. Wataru explains that then she shouldn't have been all lovey-dovey with Eri, so the boy realizes that he needs to be honest with the protagonist. He has a crush on Aika. The protagonist doesn't say much, understanding that in the end is the girl who had the last word. Besides, it's just normal for people to love the girl, and he doesn't blame him for it. However, he tells him that he'll be treating him coldly, as he's still somewhat jealous. Seeing them interact from afar, he decides that the best is for him to remain away from the girl. So when the teacher asks for him to give back some notebooks, and he sees them together, he leaves the task to Ki, faking like he needs to use the restroom. Before going home, Eika finally gets to have a moment with the protagonist, but fakes like she forgot something at the classroom. Being late, he offers to accompany her. Once in the classroom, she asks where does he go for lunch. After knowing that he eats alone, she mentions that he should eat with all of them, as it used to be. When the boy mentions that he ate with Rin, the pink-haired girl gets a bit jealous, but the boy is unable to get it, and when she asks for him to eat with them as always, he says that it's better he doesn't. The environment gets uncomfortable and they start walking home, so the girl notices that his roots are overgrown. He asks which color would suit him best, and the girl mentions that although any would suit him, she approached him at first because of his brown hair, so he goes with that color. The days go by and the exams arrive, leaving Wataru in the 65th place, something that wouldn't have happened if he kept being as vigorous with his crush on Aika, just like his unkempt hair. He realizes that his crush gave him the motivation to do many things, but that now is lost. While watching the board with the other students' rankings, he is happy to see that the pink-haired girl got the second place as expected. Yet when Sasaki approaches and shows him that he got the 29th place, a new wave of motivation reaches him, determined to forbid the handsome boy to also have such a high rank. However, his bad mood is eased when Aika realizes he corrected his roots. Some days later at school, the girls start making plans to go to the pink-haired girl's house again soon, as all of them pretty much fell in love with Eri. However, Sasaki asks if she's going to invite Wataru, making everyone go over their distance again. While coming back from lunch, the boy sees a trio of girls spying on his crush, and a blonde girl called Marika, who shrieked at his presence, starts acting like she's someone important. But in front of the boy's jokes and distasteful, they get no other choice but to leave. The next day it starts raining and Wataru bumps into Eika. He mentions that the day has grown colder, but the girl doesn't pay much attention to it. When he starts walking, she's a little late to following him, getting in the way of a truck. The boy quickly pulls her out of the way and covers the splash of the water with his umbrella, getting soaking wet. Once at school, the girl offers him a towel to dry up, but he started to feel ill and falls asleep until third period. When he wakes up, a headache hits him and the teacher starts scolding him. He tries not to make a fuss out of it and asks to go to the nurse's office, but collapses before getting to the door. Having all of his mates to take him there, he's caught a cold. The girls go to check up on him, but are quickly rushed by the nurse as classes are about to start again. When he wakes up again, the woman explains what happened and that he has a fever that might keep running high. He doesn't understand as he's fine until the morning, and the woman explains that it might be that his psychological exhaustion made his body give up. At the classroom, Aika is very worried, although she don't understand why she's so eager. During break, Rin passes by as she needed to talk with the boy, but after Ki fills her in, she explains that she'll tell Cade, as they are friends and they'll go check up on him. Once the girl leaves, the pink-haired girl pinches her friend's cheeks, apparently upset about she giving the girl information. Later that evening, the two girls are in charge of bringing Wataru's bag, but both of them notice that it's pretty light, so Ki suggests they check what's inside, but the pink-haired girl refuses. When they reach the infirmary, they call for the boy, but when he doesn't answer, they think he's asleep, only to find him looking out the window. He apologizes for causing trouble when a bad headache hits him. Aika reaches to help him, but he yells for her to back off as he doesn't want to pass her his cold and affect Eri, showing a rather vulnerable side of himself. When they get out, they come across Keed and Rin, so they follow them inside again, and Aika watches kind of jealous how the girls and treat him without any worries. When the next day he doesn't show up to school, the girls go to visit him, kind of worried that he didn't reply the texts of the group chat. Turns out that he was just asleep. Once back to school, Aika finds Wataru arguing with Marika, who had the first place during their exams. The girl looks at her realizing she's very cute, asks for her to be her follower as she'll try to postulate for student council president. The couple is a little shocked as first years have never been in such place, but reality is that it's not impossible, just not done. The boy realizes that the blonde girl wants to use her crush as a pretty face for her camping, so he explains that the pink-haired girl is way cuter than her, so she'll be overshaded and won't have the effect she wants. The girl is offended, but with so many people in the corridor, she decides that a withdrawal is her best choice, and so they do. Once alone again, Ki joins in pointing out that her friend is very embarrassed for the cute things he said about her, which confuses him as he used to say them every day. Then the Gil snaps, telling him to stop saying ridiculous things as it seems that he isn't yet over his cold. When he's unfazed by her scolding and calls her pretty again, the girl runs away, embarrassed. With the summer break around the corner, Wataru decides to take a part-time job at a used bookshop. Meanwhile, the last days of school are filled with complicated lessons, and he keeps trying to distance himself from Aika, even when Ki tries to be on his back most of the time. Going to the cafeteria for lunch, he encounters the girls from the morality committee who invite him to have lunch with them. He immediately knows something is off, but tries to be polite about it. There is when Rin asks if he'd like to join the committee as she's going to graduate soon and needs new competent members, aside from the fact that they need more men. The boy tries to refuse kindly, but Rin asks for him to consider it, as they'll need him when she graduates. After that, he rejects Yuyu's gesture of graving his hands. The other girls are already putting a price to his head, and he's barely able to escape. When he leans in one of the halls to catch his breath, Aika finds him and fixes his hair as it was messy. But it isn't after she's done that she realized the intimate act they were giving. Wataru tries to ease the mood, asking to give her money for it, but she gets upset about it and runs away. During a summer break ceremony, the students are reminded that some should help with the visit tour during the first week of August. Once back in their classes, no one offers, so the teacher asks the ones who don't have club activities to step up for a rock, paper, scissors tournament to choose the helpers. The protagonist really doesn't want to do it, so once he wins, he goes back to his seat. Too late to realize that the other winner was Aika. To add to his bad luck, Sasaki offers himself, changing places with the boy who lost so he could be close with the girl. Ki tries to get a reaction from the boy about it, but he remains apathic. After classes, the pink-haired girl and her friend go to a cafeteria and they discuss over dessert the little time they have during the summer, with Ki determined to spend the summer festival with her friend. She asks if they could invite someone else, and she quickly proposes Wataru, surprising and ashaming the other girl. Sometime later at the bookshop, the protagonist sees a little boy being picked on by some middle schoolers and decides to step in, making the older boys leave. He's first surprised to know the name of the boy is Sasaki Koda, but after making sure he's not family of his classmate, he helps the little kid. Then Koda's older sister comes to pick him up, a mature and lovely college girl. They chat for a bit when the girl has the time to compliment him. Back at home the next morning, Wataru keeps beaming about the incident. Keeb wakes up and over breakfast offers him to join the students' council if he's not going to join the morality committee, as he has rather useful administrative skills. Besides, she has no desire of leaving things to someone like Marika. Some days later, Koda's sister comes back to the store as she lives nearby and wanted to give him a gift for helping her brother. The girl explains that she goes to an only girls' school that's rather closed, nothing like his school, which gives that campus-like vibe. They chat for quite a while and she thanks him again, as thanks to him, her brother is out on the streets playing, and besides, she hasn't had the chance to talk much with a man, so he helped her with that as well. When a customer enters the store, she rushes to leave but asks if she could come by again, receiving an excited nod from the boy. Once alone, he opens the gift, which he thought was a handkerchief, and he wasn't wrong, but this one has a cute dolphin pattern, making him believe that the girl sees him as childish. Some days later, the girl stops by the store to chat, and Wataru is able to see a cute seashell bracelet tot she has. He then remembers that Aika's birthday is going to be soon, so he asks for the store where she bought it, and seeing the girl so excited about it, he ends up inviting her, so now they are at the beach together. Upon arrival, the girl looks uncomfortable and she explains to him that she usually wears little kids' clothing, so being in a dress that makes her look like a young woman makes her uncomfortable. However, as she didn't bring any change of clothing, they decide to keep going like this. Meanwhile, Aika, Eri, and Ki decide to go to the beach and stop by Wataru's house to invite him, and when he doesn't open, they simply think that he is working and go by themselves anyways. Back with Wataru, him and Koda's sister Fuga decide to go to the store, but as she's wearing heels, she leans on him for support and is herself very handsy, accidentally pressing her against him when she tries to hold his arm. All in all, they safely make it to the store, which also offers the service to teach how to make the jewelry, so now he has to choose the materials. A store owner approaches them and offers her aid with the different shells and stones, noticing that he's trying to make a gift for a girl. Fuka asks if the girl is her girlfriend, but he explains that she's only his crush, and as he yet doesn't have a clear idea about what to make, they pace by the materials a little more. She chooses a pink shell for a necklace, and although he considers the color, he doesn't think it'll fit the girl perfectly. While explaining to the girl, he realizes that giving her a gift might be more for his own satisfaction than for hers, but the girl mentions that anyone would like to receive a gift, so he comes to the conclusion that being able to give Eika something, even if she doesn't like it, is good enough. Meanwhile, for the girls, the day goes by normally as they play with Eri, and Ki takes her to the sea. Yet, the pink-haired girl feels guilty to bring her friend, as it is a perfect day for her club's practice. However, they spot the shop that Wataru is in and they decide to go in, hoping to make a memento of the day for the three of them. Back at the store, Fuka explains, when Wataru sees a picture of her in the wall of the shop that she's actually in third year of middle school, she just developed quickly. Then the shop owner comes back with a gray shell with blue spots that fits in the boy's request, but he needs to shape it, as it was raw. While cutting it, the girl asks him why if he has given up on his crush, he's still able to do all these things for her. He smiles and explains that maybe, without his crush, he won't have been able to mature into the person that he is today, so it's not all losing. However, he tries to encourage her to pursue love, but the girl is ashamed about it. Later, the girls enter the shop, but the crafting time has already been over. However, they are welcome to take a look at the jewelry, upset for not being able to get anything. Eri turns around and sees a picture of Wataru and Fuka in the wall. Later, they sit to eat some ice cream and Eika sees Wataru form the back, but after being distracted by her little sister, she thinks that she's imagining things, and when she mentions it to Ki, the girl doesn't think it's possible. Yet she teases her saying that he might be on a date, but both are cut off by Eri spilling her ice cream all over herself. Back with the Prota, they are going back before finishing the present because Fuka has a curfew, but he promises her that they'll go back and that day he'll get her a present. Already in the trip, she asks worried if she'll also fall in love when she becomes a high schooler, but he laughs saying that she won't have as any problems with that as he did. She starts falling asleep and Wataru receives a text from Ki, which is a picture of Eika and mocking him for missing it. Some days later at work, Wataru asks the owner what will he do when he has to quit, and the man explains that he has already put the hiring poster, so he needs to be a good influence for the new employee. When the man leaves to the back of the shop, a small girl enters asking for the job. It turns out that it's Ichino's Mina, one of his classmates. The owner gets very excited to know it's her, as she is a usual of the shop, so he hires her without even looking at her resume. He takes her to the back with his wife to explain about the job. But while eavesdropping, the Prota hears the woman saying that she'll cut her bangs as they cover most of her face. A little panicked about it, he interrupts and asks the girl what does she do with her hair when she reads, and the girl rushes up 2 clips to hold it, easing the woman for the time being. The next day, he arrives to teach her what to do, but is very put off by her slow and short responses. However, he tries to guide her throughout her job and leaves her tidying things up while he ondles costumers and harder work. Accidentally, he leaves her at the register misjudging a costumer, thinking he's only browsing. Sadly, as soon as he turns around, the costumer has 2 books at the counter and is ranting about the store not having a specific book, which leaves Mina trembling. The Prota quickly handles the situation, but now the girl is crying, so he takes her to the back with the owner's wife. During the day, he starts wondering if the girl would be alright once he quits, so he approaches the owner to comment it to him. The man is sad about it, as Wataru reminds him that his wife wouldn't be happy if he does the things that they hired a girl for, so she either needs to learn to do them on her own or needs to find another job. He goes to talk to her, explaining that although there's no right way to respond to a costumer, there is a wrong one, and she needs to figure out ways to avoid troublesome costumers like the first one. However, he ends up oversharing and tells her that if she can't deal with people, it's better for her to just quit. This takes the girl to the edge and asks for him not to fire her, as she wants to make it work. She's so affected that she ends up bowing and crying, which makes the boy panic and remind her that he's just another employee. He ends up allowing her to stay, and at that moment, the owner interrupts to know what's going on. He's happy about the news and lets them leave early. Back at home, his phone is blasted with a group chat as they all complain that he's abandoning them for work. Meanwhile, Eika and Ki are in a video chat talking about what they should do with the last break they have. The pink-haired girl points out that her friend still has more work, so they will go too once she's finished with it. At that moment, Wataru texts them saying that he's off work and joins the video. Luckily for her, Eika has enough time to turn off her camera, as she was putting on lotion after shower. The boy opens up with them and explains that he needs their advice. He explains the situation with Mina without saying names, and although at first they scold him, the pink-haired girl explains that he was doing his best to help her as her superior, so it's a 50-50 of the blame. Taking her chance, Ki leaves them alone in the call. They awkwardly chat for a bit, and before ending the call, she cheers him up once more, but he hangs up first, annoying the girl. The next day, Mina shows up and shows more determination than ever, forcing herself to talk and even handle customers on her own. Wataru praises her surprise, and she explains that she watched some videos about dealing with customers to do better. At break, he decides to ask her why was she so eager to get a job, and she explains that she wants to be independent from her older brother, one of the morality committee members. She loves him and enjoyed reading her books while leaning on him, but since he brought a girl home, her time with him became scarce, until one day she walked on him and the girl Yuri kissing. Although Wataru didn't want to get involved on any drama, he's now hanging at the edge of his sit by the story. He understands that now for the girl, facing her big brother is hard, so she wants to be independent. Whichever the case, he encourages to work hard, and they go back to work, and he's greatly surprised about how much she's improved, and one day the only thing left would be for her to handle customers calmly. As he accidentally says that last part out loud, the girl looks at him worried, and Fuka enters the shop. He introduces them and takes the chance to put them together over their love for books, so Mina can practice being talkative with someone as the younger girl who's very talkative. He leaves and after a while comes back. Although happy for seeing the girl talk, he's concerned that with the lack of customers, she'll never learn to deal with one. So he decides to make a little role play to help the girl where him and Fuka fake to be troublesome customers with eccentric tastes. All in all, the girl handles it fine, but when Wataru quitting comes to the table, she looks rather upset, deciding to go organize the shelves. While going home, the boy wonders why she was upset, realizing that after he quits, he'll go back to be strangers with her. Upon arriving home, Eka texts him to know how did things go, and Keed comes out of her room demanding he makes her coffee. He's so distracted thinking about Mina that he puts salt in the drink instead of sugar, then it hits him. Eka has been texting him wanting to know how did things go with the girl at work. So maybe if the girl had someone asking her things, basically being around, she could help her shyness. So the next day at work, he helps her as much as he can, teaching her and helping her practice talking to customers. At some point, Mina sees a book about eggs and remembers the day her brother brought Yuri and how the girl took over everything that was hers. After work, they are surprised by the girl's brother, who has been looking for her everywhere. He asks for Wataru to leave him alone, but the girl clings to him and he has no choice but to meddle, so they walk to a cafeteria. They sit down and Mina's chubby brother apologizes for neglecting her since he got a girlfriend, but he wants her to know that Yuri is a good person and therefore he invited her over as well. The other girl sits next to her boyfriend and apologizes for stepping on her territory. However, both of them start telling the younger girl that she's too young for a job, so the prota has to stop them and ask for them to really listen to what the girl has to say. They plead that everything is for the girl's sake, but he scolds them and tells them that a younger sister wanting to separate herself from her older brother was only natural, and that even if they wanted to decide her future, they should at least wait until she herself can express it. He manages to buy her some time and he asks him why didn't he scold her. So he explains that this was a private matter, he's only her superior during working hours, and for what's good, he wouldn't have allowed them to just take her away after all the progress she has done. She doesn't say anything, but she starts crying, worrying the boy. The preparations for the visit tour begin, and Sasaki quickly finds his way to Eka, sitting next to her and looking at her all the time. Some days later, Wataru arrives at work and Mina had cut her bangs, allowing her face to show, something that he had told her once. Later, Fuka arrives, excited to talk about a book recommendation from the girl. He scolds her lightly, but takes off the training tag from her apron, making her an official worker. Fuka goes to visit the shop once more and her and Mina passionately talk about books as the first one brought her a copy of a book the girl had been looking for. Wataru is happy to have them around but can't deny the fact that one of them looking older than she is and the other looking younger is getting him a bit dizzy. Then the group chat flows with a picture of the start of the preparations and Ki texts him, asking for his help. When he gets home, she asks for a drink as usual and explains that with the tour things are tight and Rin's department needs help. Besides, she's been weeping to her about being turned down by him, so he owes her in some way. Being by his cider, he ends up calling the girl and offering his help. She tries to refuse, but he insists, saying that he wants to see her in a personal level, to which she finally agrees. They meet at the school gates and she thanks him for helping, although things are a bit awkward because of the incident with Yuyo. However, as the committee is in majority women and they need help with labor work, she has no chance but to ask him. Besides, she has faith that everything will go alright because it's him. As they walk past a classroom, they see the strategy the school would be using, as the most good-looking students will work as representatives who'd walk the middle schoolers that attend the tour. This was made in the hope they would create some sense of admiration in the youngest to attract them to the school. Wataru sees Aika and Sasaki, realizing that they do a good couple, but then the boy sees him. Not wanting any problem or to call attention, he walks fast, distancing from the place. They reach the committee's office and Mina's brother immediately thanks him, as now his sister talks and laughs more, but the boy would rather just get done with the work he has to do. Meanwhile, Sasaki asks if Aika would like to see one of his practice matches as he's in the football team, but she has to take care of her sister. so she turns him down. She starts remembering that in middle school, the pressure of being always taking care of Eri was a lot, so she was mostly alone as her classmates ended up asking her to join them for fun. But when Wataru had his incident and she helped him, she didn't do it because she was kind, rather because she saw her disdain in him. The next day, he went to confess his feelings, and since then, he was always by her side, making people notice her more. Until the week before the admission exams where he disappeared, which she later would realize it was to study so he could get in the same high school as her. With time, more and more people came close to her, but he distanced himself. Suddenly, she hears Wataru's voice, but it's just Sasaki. Yet she runs around the school looking for the Prota. When she doesn't find him, Sasaki finds her and asks if she has been thinking about the Prota all this time. But before he could elaborate, his little sister calls him and Eika decides to go home. There she realizes that she misses him, but her feelings are confusing. And then she sees the Prota and tries to run after him, running around the whole school trying to find him, until she stumbles with him and they end up falling. Wataru starts stretching, and he explains that he's been doing Legro work, but the girl cuts him saying that she saw him. This makes him anxious as she hasn't noticed him before, but the girl shocks him even more by approaching and saying that he smells like sweat. The boy has gone into the spiral of anxiety and asks if something good has happened, as she wouldn't approach just like that. When he asks why was she running, she snaps saying that she was running because she saw him. She says that it's sad that they haven't seen each other in a while and now this is how they meet, but he explains that he didn't have time. They talk briefly about the incident with Mina, and he's a bit upset about her not asking more. However, he tries to make a light talk, pointing out her tan. So he tells her about the picture that Key sent him, and she wants to have his phone to erase it. When she reaches for it, he grabs her hand to stop her and she bumps into his. Before something else could happen, Key interrupts them as she's coming out of her practice and Eika launches herself onto her. The three of them sit to have a drink and Wataru almost slips the fact that he went to the beach as well. The girls ask him to sit and asks why is he at the school. Nervous, he explains that he's just doing a favor and explains the tactic of the school with the good-looking students, which Key takes to ask if he'd have rather being him and the pink-haired girl helping instead of Sasaki. Aika seems really interested, but he manages to sweat the topic off. In the end, they talk about what they are doing at the moment. In a minute of bravery, Aika asks the both of them to go out after the visit tour, but the boy isn't sure if he could, as he'd have to clean up as well, but both girls are willing to wait. The day of the tour arrives and everything seems to be going fine. The Students' Council's president charmed everyone with his kindness and good looks, so now it's up to the guides. Sasaki and Aika are in charge of a small group in which casually Fuka is attending. Some of the girls ask if they are dating, but the pink-haired girl addresses the question kindly saying that they are just classmates and they won't be answering any more personal questions. The tour follows up smoothly until while walking by the soccer field they see a group of boys arena. It seems that her and her companion cannot really control the boys, so the pink-haired girl steps up, protecting the girl and coldly scolding the boys, saying that they don't need people like them at the school. After that, they continue the tour and by the end of it, the group of boys approaches them to apologize for their actions. Then Fuka sees Wataru and runs after him, making the boy panic. Her friends immediately chime in, asking if he's the boy who taught their friends some common sense, but she mentions that they already have a deep relationship and went out, so they don't need to ask for him to take care of her. Although it's too late to fix how her words sounded, she tries to fix it and takes her friends with her. Oddly, Aika looks way too calmed and scared. Sasaki leaves his free and alone with the scary girl. He tries to talk, but the girl quickly drags him to see Key, who mocks him endlessly. And after a little about the photo, he ends up giving in and telling them everything. The girl asks again for his phone, but he refuses, so she accepts under the condition that he also spends time with them. He doesn't give credit to it, but after the girl repeats herself, he accepts and they share some texts about going. After fixing that they go to Aika's house, so Eri isn't alone, Key calls her and tells her to be cautious with how does she approach Wataru if she doesn't want the boy to run away again. It's a normal work day for Wataru and Mina when it starts raining and they need to take the books inside. In the middle of the pouring, the boy sees Aika, who has come to see him. He rushes her inside the shop and a Shay girl offers her a towel, so they start talking lightly and she asks if he's going to leave the job, which he says that he will when classes start again, thing that seems to upset Mina. However, in the middle of their talk, Fuka comes into the shop and instantly goes to say hi to the pink-haired girl. The older girl tries to get her dry, but Mina urges her to the back room to get her nice and dry. Aika seems upset about the girl being there and asks if he should really quit as he seems close to both girls. She tries to leave upset, but stumbles with some books and falls, being caught by the boy before her head hits the ground. At that moment, the two other girls open the door, but they close it quickly before they could do anything. They both stand up, not looking at each other. The girl mentions the hangout at her place, but the boy, though, she'd cancel it, as she has made clear that she didn't want someone like him near her sister. However, she stands by her invitation and mentions that she wanted for him to be like Eri's older sister, but quickly becomes ashamed by the implication for her words. Then the girls open the door and close it again. feeling like they're stepping into something private. The day finally arrives, but Wataru can't come to knock on the door, so Ki sneaks behind his back and does it herself. He's quickly introduced to Eri, who immediately calls him by his surname, as it's easier for a 5-year-old, and takes him as her personal toy. The little one makes him be a horse, riding him around the house so Eka pick her up, and Ki mentions that she likes him. The boy is not sure about it, but can't argue much when the little girl tackles him into a hug. During a quick break to have a drink, the pink-haired girl mentions that Eri isn't this bratty with everyone, and seeing Wataru be worn out makes her a bit guilty. But he mentions that she wanted him to be the little girl's older brother, so Ozak. This makes her free and curious, and to tease them playfully, as she mentions to the little girl that she could have an older brother, and this triggers a new obsession in the girl. However, she clarifies for her friend that she only meant it in like an older man to play with, making the girl punch her, ashamed. Meanwhile, Eri asks if Wataru is better, and after receiving confirmation, she tackles him again. As Mike starts falling, Eka's mom comes to the house and is introduced to the boy. She mentions that she has heard stories about him from her daughter, but the girl cuts her before she says something embarrassing, so she goes to escort her friends. The woman waves from the door, saying that she wanted to talk with the boy, but her daughter eases her, saying that the next time she might fill in the boy with the hope of being invited again. As they walk down the streets, he mentions how much Eri looks like her mom and says that they are beautiful, so the girl scolds him. There he remembers and asks her what did her mother mean, and Ki takes the chance to leave them alone. Wataru tries to leave as well, but she insists in escorting him a little further. As they walk around a park, she mentions that school has been fun, but that hasn't been natural, as she didn't feel like that before. He apologizes, thinking that it was his fault, but she explains that even before him, she wasn't able to have that kind of social skills. She was way too focused on familiar problems, but after getting to high school, everyone knew about her because of him and her life was light. Yet the last time she felt something was missing, and it was him. He tries to explain that he might ruin it if he joins everyone like she wants, but she cuts him and tells him that that won't happen because he's where she belongs, leaning into him. At that moment, fireworks roar in the sky and she hugs him afraid. She holds on for a little longer and apologizes as she doesn't do well with loud noises. He calls her by her last name and she sadly asks if he's never going to call her by her name again, but quickly backs off, ashamed. Still, she tells him that she wants for him to talk to her like before because she can't enjoy herself if he isn't there. They start walking again in an awkward silence. Wataru wants to reach for her hand but doesn't dare. In exchange, she reaches for his and grabs his finger, allowing the boy to feel secure enough to grab her whole hand. In the end, he walks her back home as it's already late and just as an excuse to keep holding hands. When classes start again, Cade keeps on with asking favors, but for the first time since they met, Aika is waiting for him at the school door. She says hello, but when he doesn't call her by her name, she gets closer to fix his tie, aiming also for his hair, but he stops her. While walking, he tries to make a small talk, asking if she cut her hair, but as that isn't the case, they end up just laughing about it.